On May 27th, a large-scale operation targeted Norteño gang members and associates linked to a criminal organization for distributing of drugs. The investigation was a 2-month-long investigation that targeted Norteños that just in coincidence happened to be on the No Jumper podcast a month before. This was a very large operation bringing down several Norteño gang members or alleged Norteño gang members. As you can see in this video, this was an early morning raid that arrested a Norteño, also known and goes by the moniker Big Jim in Sacramento County.
Buenos dias, Gunners Collective TV. Back at it, you already know. Like a torta with a bad habit. Buy up, buy up. If you haven't hit that like and subscribe button, make sure you go ahead and do that. Put your notification bell on all so that way you're directing the direction of the dope content that the gun stays kicking. And I appreciate the support. I'm very humbled by it. No Jumper strikes again, que no? I told you guys. How many times do I have to say anyone who associates, goes around, is in the vicinity? Hey, stay 5 blocks away, because if you go to the No Jumper podcast or you are in association with it, more than likely you or someone around you is going to get popped, busted, vamuskis, bye-bye, right? And it's unfortunate, but it happens. When you're in the game, you know you're taking a risk. I used to be in a lightweight game, right? And I was taking a risk every day with my life. And luckily, I realized what was going on, and I got the fuck away from it. But there's a lot of individuals and people that are participating in gangs, they're participating in drugs, they're participating in the streets, and you're going to get the street results. Results are Big Jim from Sacramento, right? A very well-known Norteño or associate out there in Sacramento County was arrested last week, along with several others, in what was a massive drug bust. There were several firearms seized, pounds and pounds of meth, and other drugs, right? Other narcotics. Look, I got a phone call yesterday from a very good homeboy of mine, an active Norteño from Sacramento, right? And he was like, bro, I got to get at you. Something went down. It's not out there on social media yet. I'm surprised. It is as far as the Sacramento Sheriff's page, but it's not out there by content creators. I said, well, what is it? He said, oh, there was a big drug bust in Sacramento. I said, well, that's cool. That shit happens all the time. He said, no, it involves people that are known on social media. Also, it involves the No Jumper podcast to some degree. So I immediately called him, talked to him, well, what's going on, right? And so if you recall, BFD, the rapper out of Sacramento, and a few other Norteños pulled up to the No Jumper podcast a couple months ago, right? And it was pretty well-known knowledge that these guys went and the video was released after the fact, right? But them being Norteños, I'm sure the preparation was real. So according to this active Norteño who got at me, who has intimate details onto what exactly happened, I guess the Norteños didn't just pull up 6 or 7 deep to No Jumper. They actually went about 50 deep to No Jumper. But what you seen on camera was just a few of them. They actually went and they were very well prepared. I'm not going to tell you what they had on them or what they allegedly had on them. I'm just going to say that they didn't go down there lacking. Okay. They went very prepared for whatever, because, you know, when you're going to hostile territory or the opposition's territory, you got to be on point. You got to be up to par, and you better be prepared, because anything could happen at any given time. And we all know that, man, there has been skirmishes and fights and things that have happened on the No Jumper podcast. So needless to say, without saying too much, Adam's security is definitely not up to par, only in protection of Adam, but people that pull up to the podcast definitely are not looked out for like you would think, right? So these guys prepared themselves and went 50 strong, 50 deep, just like when the Southsiders pulled up on behalf of Gil from American Cholo, Gil, and they went 50 deep to confront Adam and the podcast, the Nortenos also went deep and were not lacking. Now, at that point, they did their podcast, and this guy known as Big Jim out of Sacramento, a very well-known character out of Sacramento, was also there, allegedly, right? Now, you guys got to understand things. There's been a lot of rumors going around for years that people that pull up to the No Jumper podcast get popped and busted in or about the area of No Jumper, right? People like Big U, people like Brick Baby, people like C-Mac, and the list goes on and on and on. You either lose your life or lose your freedom. But there's a lot of things that happen just circling around No Jumper. Now, there could be a lot of theories. A lot of people say Adam is working with them guys, them alphabet boys. There's a lot of people that are pointing fingers at Adam 16. I'll say this about Adam. There's never been anything to link him to these arrests other than people pulling up or associating with his podcast, which looks a little tricky and a little fishy to me. I've said several times, man, I'd advise people not to go on that podcast if you're in the gang life, just because what do you benefit or get out of talking about your association with gangs or talking about criminal activities that you've been involved in on a podcast that's going to be broadcast to thousands of people on social media? It's not a good look. It's not a good thing. It's not a safe or a positive move to make. But dudes do it anyways. They feel like No Jumper is the gateway into stardom or the gateway into whatever. So anyways, these Norteños going on No Jumper can just be a coincidence. But a couple months later, there's a big bust in Sacramento, and a lot of the Norteños that actually pulled up to that podcast, whether they were seen on camera or not, got arrested. There was over 17 individuals arrested at their homes in the early morning of May 26th, 27th, right? Just last week. And the biggest fish was this guy, Big Jim, allegedly. And they're calling it a drug ring, a drug operation. But who knows, right? One thing I do know is they seized several firearms and they got Big Jim off the streets. And it's an unfortunate thing. Now, he did have association with well-known rappers out of Sacramento, like you rocking with Thumps, right? As you see in that thumbnail right there, Thumps is in a car that was seized by the police, right? It's a Chevelle that was seized. This video was just released not even 2-3 weeks ago of Thumps doing a music video and sitting in Big Jim's car. It has been seized by officers in the raid. So for whatever reason, they feel that car was linked to whatever activities were going on, right? Now, I'm not sitting here and trying to tie Thumps into it. I'm not saying he was involved in any of that activity at all. Obviously, if he was, he would have been arrested along with the rest of the guys. But he was seen in that vehicle and it was utilized for a music video. It happens. If you have homeboys that are well known from your city and they got nice cars, man, then you're sitting in the car with Thumps, right? And that's that. Others like BFD are linked to this gentleman. He's been seen in several music videos with these guys. And it's just like I said, a well-known figure out of Sacramento. His business or what they're alleging him to be guilty of does not have anything to do with these rappers whatsoever. But according to the dude I talked to, and he thought it was fishy, these people did all pull up 50 strong to LA to the No Jumper podcast. And just a couple months later, pop goes the weasel. The weasel went pop, right? People are arrested. Now, to me, it's not a coincidence. To me, it's an obvious telltale sign that something surrounding the No Jumper podcast just ain't right. Okay, if you guys recall and if you remember, when No Jumper first came out, they were interviewing rappers. It was all about hip hop, right? Adam was vested in, bringing the hip hop culture to the masses. And it was something different. No Jumper was actually a good podcast because you got in-depth stories from rappers. You learned about their features, upcoming things that they were dealing with and what they had going on. And it was pretty much a good podcast, a go-to podcast for people in interviews like King Von and several others that pulled up, right? Before King Von was famous and all that, he pulled up to No Jumper. And that was actually a catalyst in people getting to know who he was. Sometime after that, Adam started to get away from the hip hop scene and go into the Chicago and LA gang scene. And now every podcast, if they're not arguing and doing some Jerry Springer shit and willing to fight online, they are involved in talking to gang members and the politics of gangs and the streets. Now, I thought it was what it was. When the brothers was doing it, I was like, bro, don't do it, cuz. On Paul Rule, don't do it. But all of a sudden, you started seeing Southsiders, people like Lefty Gunplay, people like Tommy Guns, people like P-Face Baby, all these different Southerners that are rappers, but also involved in the gangs, allegedly, right? Pulling up to the No Jumper podcast. You also seen Nortenos and Bulldogs and dropout Norteño gang members pull up to the No Jumper podcast. Now, I'm keenly aware of what goes on in the game, right? And I've seen homeboys get whacked, removed. Like I said, I had a homeboy that got beat up on just because he was watching my channel, right? Just because he was showing some support. The homie said, nah, no can do. You can't support that guy. Yet, you'll have dropout gang members, right? People who are on social media speaking on all the politics and all that, pull up on No Jumper, no hatred, right? But they'll pull up on No Jumper, and active gang members will go to that podcast and sit down with Adam like that just didn't happen, right? Knowing that this man associates with everyone, but it's always, well, he's a civilian. He could do that. Well, there's a lot of civilians out there that associate with people that are considered not active or no good, and they don't get the pass. But for some reason, Adam keeps getting the pass. Either it's people are just wanting to feel like they're a part of something bigger than themselves, or he just got it like that. Whatever the case may be, after he gets it like that, people get locked up like that. Now, I got a lot of theories. And one of my theories is I think at some point in time before Adam switched up and went to interrogating gang members on his podcast for views, and that's what it is, an interrogation, not an interview, but an interrogation, because there's always something pops up. He does his homework and he asks us about particular crimes that people were involved in or know about, right? Sometimes he gets the answers he wants and sometimes he doesn't. People seem to get locked up anyways. But before he got into interviewing and interrogating gang members, like I said, it was a hip hop podcast. Then it switched up. I believe something happened in the meantime, in between time. Just my theory, just the way I'm looking at it. I think, Adam might have got caught up, maybe for tax purposes or different purposes. And again, he might have got caught up and made a deal with the devil, right? And when you're behind those cameras on the podcast, that doesn't mean that's the only cameras you're behind, and you don't know who those cameras and that audio is linked to and who's watching and listening as well. And a lot of times, what we see on the lives are not what's going on behind the scenes. There's a lot of other things when them cameras ain't rolling going on behind the scenes, but who's to say the cameras are not still rolling? So imagine if you have a whole bunch of gang members from Northern California or Southern California that pull up to a podcast and they're keenly aware that anything can go down. I'm sure they're going to be strapped up or they're going to be prepared. You always see these guys with these little bags on, and I'm sure those bags don't got Tic Tacs and spearmint gum, right? And so, you may think, all right, man, he's not filming. Are you filming, homie? I'm not filming right now. We're good. And you might dip the thing off to the homie. Here, hold that, bro. And people might be seeing that. Okay, that's all you need to get pulled over or to spark an investigation. It just is what it is. According to what old boy told me from Sacramento, like I said, 50 deep went. That means some of them were in hotels. Some of them were in the surrounding area, outside in the parking lot or whatever, waiting, making sure everything. It was basically security, making sure everything was good with the homies that were doing the podcast, which at that time I believe was Insane and BFD, right? And again, them two individuals don't have no association with this actual case, right? But it's a trip that, dudes that were there, almost every dude that was there did get arrested. It's crazy, right? And so this guy, Big Jim, in the early hours of the morning, on May 27th, gets popped. They raid his house. They snatch him up. Now, he was at the No Jumper, from what I'm hearing, allegedly. He just wasn't on camera. And like I said, he's seen since then in several music videos, and his car's been used in music videos, right, by alleged active gang members and rappers in the Sacramento area, right? Now, that doesn't mean that this guy is contributing to the Norteño activities or the gang activities, or that he's even guilty of what they're allegedly accusing him for. But the fact is that just the coinky dinky, the coincidence of him going to No Jumper, right? Being associated, affiliated, or a part of that, and then not even 2.5 months later, 3 months later, being arrested on a big, massive drug case. It could be just coincidence. It could be bad timing. It could be what it is. But like I said, it's the curse of No Jumper. People that seem to associate, be affiliated, or go around No Jumper or on No Jumper seem to be dropping like flies, getting arrested. And so now it makes you think. It makes you think when Lucky from Hoodstock says, hey, PSA to all the Sureños and Southsiders, that's it. Don't go on that channel. It's not because he's jealous of Adam. It's not because he's hating. It's because he might know something everyone else don't know. And he's trying to tell you that dude is faulty. There's some wild shit going on there. People get locked up off that motherfucker, right? And look, it doesn't mean that the people are not committing crime. If you're committing crime, you're going to get locked up eventually, whether you go on No Jumper or not. It's just part of the game, right? But that right there is just a fast forward. That's a DeLorean right there. You get in there and you go to the future. The future is there is no future in your front. You're going to get locked up and or die. And it's just a trip, right? But this was a big thing because it did have ties to No Jumper allegedly. And now, mind you, this is just what I was told. You know, this is not verified that it's because of Adam, but it's just in the big scheme of things. If you look at how many people have been locked up around No Jumper, it just starts to make you wonder. People like Aunt Heffet, like I said, Brick Baby, Big U, C-Mac, who's the other motherfucking Bawoso, man? That's just a goofy one. I forget his name. His old lady left and she's already with 3 other guys, right? There's just so many different people that have gotten incarcerated that have affiliated or associated with that podcast. So when Lucky said, hey, don't go over there, he's trying to save motherfuckers. He's trying to save his people from not getting caught up in that junk over there, that mess, right? And at the same time, you know, it boggled my mind that people like Tommy Guns and his other little homeboy, right, the other Southerners would still go on No Jumper like they have some type of loyalty to Adam or he has some loyalty to them. You know, what people will do for money and clout, right? When at the end of the day, hey, that everything comes with a price. Believe that. And I'm sure Big Jim and the other Norteños that are locked up in Sacramento County Jail right now are feeling the repercussions of that. Of course, they took Big Jim's vehicle. They seized that. They seized several firearms that were found in these raids. There was over 11 raids conducted, 11 different homes, and big amounts of money, big amounts of narcotics, gigantic amounts of guns, right? Seized. And of course, man, this is going to be a lot of time that this man is looking at. You know, when you're in the game, you're in the game. And that's part of the game, being locked up. But it's just so unfortunate if it went down with a twist, right? And mind you, again, just because Thumps was sitting in the vehicle and doing a music video doesn't mean he has association with what was going on behind the scenes. Okay, was he aware? I have no idea, and I wouldn't put that on him because that's not what we do here, right? But he was, like I said, seen in the vehicle making the video. It's normal. Shit like that happens, man. I got homeboys that are rappers from Merced, man, that borrow vehicles from well-known people that have nice cars, right? And you just, a lot of these rappers, you see that ain't even their shit. It's not their car. You see him, motherfucker was last week performing at Panda Express, and this week he's jumping out of a Phantom. If you don't stop it, people that's, oh man, he's look at all that jewelry, he's jumping out of a Rolls Royce, he's really doing it. Motherfucker, last week he was working at Subway. I'll take the BMT with extra fucking guac, right? You know what I mean? Come on now, stop. The one thing that just stands out to me is, like I said, when Adam is involved, incarceration and death is involved for some reason. And it doesn't mean that he had anything to do with this drug bust all the way in Northern California, Sacramento. But like I said, it's just a coincidence that motherfuckers that were on his podcast, that were literally there in the parking lot, are now gone. What's seen behind those scenes with those cameras when you think they're not rolling could tell a whole different story. It just is what it is. Again, I'm not trying to lock Adam into this investigation or whatever, but I'm just saying it's just a big fucking coincidence, like it always is every time. Adam is just a civilian that has already self-admitted that if anything happens, he will tell everything, right? That's just what it is. Now, I wanted to get back to what Lucky from Hoodstock said when he told the Southerners. He didn't mandate or debo on anyone and say don't go on there. He just said if you go on that podcast, that's on you, and you're no longer welcome to his podcast. And a lot of dudes took that as he was saying or trying to regulate and be like, hey, you can't, as a Sureño, you can't. He never said that. He just said, don't, bro, you know, trying to look out and whatever. And then Adam turns around and disrespects him, questions his status within the Sureño movement, and questions his membership in his barrio and all that. And there's vatos that are active Southsiders like Tommy Guns and shit that's still going over there. And even went as far as to say, man, you know, that's between them. Look, I don't know where you come from, but I remember back in the days, man, if any other race, ethnicity, or whatever disrespects the homie, bro, we ain't fucking with you, period. Don't matter if I don't fuck with him. Don't matter if it was a Norteño at the time and I was an active Norteño and I didn't fuck with him. I didn't even like him. I wanted to bone his baby's mom, right? I hated him. If a black dude or a white dude or an Asian dude disrespected him, I'm obligated out of loyalty to my cause to defend that man, right? So for dudes that are just like, nah, and anything for the clout and some pocket change, whatever, homie, get what comes with that, right? Because Big Jim is probably thinking, damn, I should have never pulled up down there, right? Anyways, with that being said, massive drug bust in Sacramento. It's not really out on social media yet, and I'm very surprised it isn't. And hopefully it works out well for the community and it works out well for everybody involved. It's an unfortunate situation. Again, nothing is verified as far as any ties in with No Jumper to this, other than this man and several others did pull up to No Jumper. And it's just a coincidence that the investigation then started after. And Big Jim and his partners are locked up now. With that being said, let me know what you guys think. Thumbs up or thumbs down. Heavy's going to be the head that wears the crown. I'm going to continue to strive, struggle, and strive for what I truly believe in. That's the betterment of all people. This video right here is sponsored by Barrio Liquors in Turlock, California. If you're ever in the Turlock area in the 209, pull up to the Barrio and get you something cold to drink. Also, by Sticks and Stones Yard Service in Tucson, Arizona. If you're in the Tucson area and you need an estimate on some yard work, hit up Sticks and Stones, man. He ain't a hard man to find. This is the gun. Bang, bang. And if you go to No Jumper, you won't be hard to find either.